All right. Hi, everyone. In this presentation, I'm going to be exploring how Egypt's 2011 revolution and the 2013 military takeover fit within the broader ideas of what revolutions actually are. Not only a political event, but a deep social and cultural raptures, essentially. In 2011, Uprising was fueled by demands for dignity, justice, and a new version of citizenship. Not only 2 years later, Egypt experienced a sharp reversal when the military reasserted its control and took over. My goal here is to essentially connect our lecture's theme on the natures of revolutions, their promises, and their limits to what actually happened in Egypt and to understand how this reshapes Egypt's society and culture. So basically, in our lecture, it defines revolutions as more than just replacing one regime with another. A true revolution transforms how power operates, how people relate to one another, and how they imagine their future. This is also very important that revolutions are rarely neat or finished. They're very messy. They can stall, they can be reversed, and or even be captured by old elites. So people of the old regime can resurface and hijack the movement. Revolutions don't just change governments; they redefine the legitimacy and the identity of that state as a whole, and they force people to ask, how are we now? Essentially, that is, what kind of society do we want to build? When we apply this to Egypt, it helps us see that 2011 was not just a movement of protests, but it was an attempt to redefine Egyptian political culture, which was later challenged and essentially reversed in a way by the events of 2013. In January of 2011, millions of Egyptians poured into the streets demanding a change in Tahrir Square. The uprising united groups that rarely stood side by side. So you had students, women, workers, everyday citizens, essentially every part of Egyptian society gathered in one location. Tahrir Square became more than just a protest site. It was a cultural revolution in itself, a place where art, humor, and shared purpose transformed public space into a symbol of freedom. I discussed in previous videos about the guitar player that became an internet phenomenon. I also talked about the graffiti that came out of the movement. The digital tools were central. Facebook pages, citizen videos, and Twitter threads mobilized the people in a way that the regime couldn't control or censor. And culturally, there was a feeling of awakening, a reclaiming of public voices and creative energy. Graffiti covered by the city with the faces of martyrs, songs carried messages of resistance, and people began to imagine Egypt as belonging to its citizens, not the Hosni Mubarak and his group of elitists. The period between 2011 and 2013 was marked by intense turbulence. After Mubarak's fall, Egypt entered a fragile transition with multiple power centers. The military, the Muslim Brotherhood, or the Ikhwan al-Muslimin, who had been banned from participating in Egyptian politics for the past few decades, the liberal activists, and the remnants of the old state. So the elitists that remained in Egypt after Mubarak's fall. When Mohamed Morsi was elected in 2012, many hoped democracy had arrived. But mistrust and ideological divide quickly widened. Islamists versus the secularists, urban versus rural, and old elites versus the revolutionaries. Meanwhile, the economy also suffered, as we've discussed in previous videos. Tourism collapsed, prices rose, and daily frustration grew. The optimism of Tahrir Square began to fade as people questioned whether the revolution could deliver stability and justice. This polarization set the stage for the events of 2013, when calls for order once again outweighed the calls for reform. And that's when Sisi came and took power. In July of 2013, after mass protests against Morsi's rule, the military intervened, removed him from office, and suspended the constitution that he had reformed. Many Egyptians, tired of instability, welcomed the move as essentially a correction, but for others, it was a coup that reversed the revolution's democratic promise. Again, Morsi was a president that was publicly elected through the democratic system, which many people saw that as old elites coming back and reversing that. Culturally, the impact was immediate. Public spaces, once filled with protest art and music, was reclaimed by the state. The independent media outlets were shut down, activists imprisoned, and political discussion once again moved into whispers. Many Facebook groups were actually shut down after the 2013 military coup. The military reestablished its role as a political actor, but as a guardian of national identity as well, linking patriotism to obedience. The creative openness of 2011 gave way to self censorship and nostalgia for the brief freedom that had essentially been lost with the 2013 movement. The aftermath reshaped Egypt's social and cultural fabric. Socially, the revolution coalition fractured. Activists were jailed. Islamists pushed underground, and public discourse turned inward. Ikhwan al-Muslimin essentially had to rebrand, and many of its old members were imprisoned. Culturally, a pattern of expression followed by a repression that essentially took hold. Even under restriction, quiet resistance survived through art, film, and online humor. That's when you get a lot of Egyptian comedians coming on TV and actually poking fun at the regime. Subtle but powerful forms of dissonance began to emerge as well within the society. Economically, the military influence deepened, expanded into construction, food, and infrastructure inequality persisted, and the same economic frustration that sparked the 2011 remained unsolved. But now, with the military taking over, there was no room for people to come to the Tahrir Square and try to reverse this old regime again. Regionally, Egypt's experience became both a warning and a lesson, showing neighbor states that dangers of instability, but also the enduring human desire for change was a powerful message, and a lot of countries actually took note from Egypt's 2011 and 2013 movements. So, to conclude, Egypt's revolution reminds us that revolutions are not single events. They're a long process filled with hope, backlash, and reinvention. The 2013 uprising cracked open Egypt's political imagination. The 2013 takeover closed it and slammed it shut, but not completely. Even under repression, the memory of Tahrir, endurance, the art and the music in the quiet defiance of everyday Egyptian who still dreamed of freedom, they all grew. If revolutions are not are about redefining who people are, then I would say Egypt's story is still being written. The story is not has not ended. The question is whether the next chapter will bring another awakening, another Tahrir Square event, or a deeper entrenchment of power and control. Either way, cultural remains the area where the struggle essentially continues with Egypt.